I'm ready to sew my 2 units together, I've got the one with the lighter color on the left at the top. That way my seam is pointing toward me on that one, and I'm going to put the other one on top of it so that the top edge and the right edge is even. So when you sew, get your presser foot down, put your fingers on your thread so they won't go down in there and make a bird's nest. I have a knot there, so let me start that over. Okay. There's the thread. Now take a couple of stitches and leave your needle down and get the 2 seams in the center locked together. You want them to just fit snugly against one another, and they should just lock. When you get across them, leave your needle down and come down here and get the last 2 pieces, last 2 corners, even them up, and sew to the end. You can chain these and make quick work of it. So go ahead and get your 4 patches. Get enough for 1 block and we'll get that together. When you get ready to iron your units, you want a nice steam iron. Set that seam, open it out, and iron it open. You should have a perfect plus sign or T sign where those meet. This one looks really good. Okay, then when you flip it over where this seam is, you'll see 2 little sections that were sewn. You kind of just do this to it. Then you'll be able to turn all of this way and all of that way, and then iron it in the directions it wants to go. And you have a perfect little 4 patch there in the center, and this seam is much, much flatter for your finished quilt. So go ahead and iron your patches. We're ready to work on our full block here. I have the pattern. You've got your 4 patchwork units, your solid blocks, and your center block. I have my center block, I've got my 4 solid, and my 4 patch units. Now when you get these in slice, make sure the brown makes an X. Don't get one of them turned like this. That's not how the pattern goes. So make sure your browns stay in place. We're going to sew this one to this one and this one to this one, and that'll be row 1. Then sew these 3 together, that's row 2, and these 3, that's row 3. When you press your seams, press it toward the light square. On this one you press to the light, and this one you press to the light. That way all of your seams will lock when we sew the rows together. So let's get busy. As I sew my block together, I want to put the pieces back in place to make sure I don't get something turned the wrong way. So each time you sew a piece together, put it back in place on your design wall, and that way you make sure you don't have a mistake. Make sure that brown continues in the X pattern. When you're sewing one of the 4 patch pieces to a solid piece, put the solid on the bottom so that you don't have to worry about the seam. If you have a seam on top, it should be facing you. If it's not, make sure it goes in the correct direction. But as long as the solid is on the bottom, you don't have to worry about any seams down there going in the right direction. I have put my 3 rows back up on the design wall, and they're ironed correctly. However, I got them upside down so that my brown is going in the opposite direction that it should be. Make sure you get these rows excuse me, in the right position before you sew them together. When you sew your rows together, you will sew this one onto this one, matching the seams on each one. So we'll get our block together now. We've completed 1 block. This is our 9 patch. It's 3 by 3. It's called a 9 patch. But it has the little 4 patches in the corner. Now we've put all these pieces together, and they have to come out to 12.5 inches. So measure your block make sure it's 12.5 inches square before you make the other 6. If you need to fix something, you need to do it now. When you get that correct, make the other 6, and we'll have all of these blocks ready to go, and we'll start on the other one. If you will look at our pattern, we have the patchwork block we just did alternated with a snowball block. This is the snowball block. It has a solid 12.5 inch piece that we've cut, and we're going to put these triangles, which are 4.5 inch squares, that we're going to work with on the corners. What we're going to do is take our 12.5 inch square we've cut, then we're going to take 4 of the 4.5 inch triangles of the teal color that we want. Then we're going to grab us a ruler. Get a piece of scrap paper for this. Put everything on the paper. Now what we're going to do is take our block and turn it upside down. We're working on the wrong side of the block now. We want a sharp pencil, and we're going to line a ruler up from corner to corner. We're going to take your pencil and angle it away from the direction you're going so it won't try to move your material, and mark it about 3 times. And you'll have a nice distinct line on here to sew on. We're going to then take one for each corner and put it on this 12-inch block. Get it even with the edges. Now the diagonal line we drew is going this way. We're going to pin it there, and this is right sides together. Pin it there, and I pin a couple in the middle. This is one of the few times I use pins, but you've got to get these diagonals just right. Now I'll go ahead and do the other 3 and get them ready, and then I'm going to sew exactly on that line, and then I'll show you what we do next. I have my 4 corner blocks pinned on now. The diagonal lines go across the corner, not with the corner. I'm going to sew these on here. You want to have a snug stitch, enough that it will not come loose at the edges very easily. You want to have your needle centered to where you're going to come right down that line. We don't want to come to the left or right. We want to come right down the center of that line. Get your threads over to the side. There we go. And start sewing. Now, if you have a little trouble with starting your sewing, you can either use a scrap piece or just slightly pull back on your thread until it gets going, and then it should go okay. Pin cushion here. Do not sew over your pins. Sew up to them, just very close, and then remove them and keep going. Come exactly down that line. Not to the left or right, but right down the line. Now, if you need a stiletto or a seam ripper to hold it in place at the end here, do that. You're going to sew right off. Now, I'm going to take this to the ironing board and iron. I'm going to set it and then iron it up so that the good side is to the good side of the block. I'll do all 4 corners that way and then iron it, and I'll show you what we do next.